first two presenters here. And I would like to hand this chair over to the floor over to Dr. Shubha Pandey to make her opening remarks as chair of the session.
Thank you very much, Professor Kumar, for giving me this opportunity to chair this very important session on geospatial innovation initiatives among youth. I also welcome Dr. T.P. Singh, the Director Symbiosis, the co-chair of this session. Dr. Singh is having a very vast experience in the field of geospatial technology, not only in India and abroad as well. So Dr. Singh, he's unfortunately not here. But Dr. Singh is the member of many professional bodies and the vice chairman of Indian Society of Geomatics, Pune chapter. He has edited many books in the field of geospatial technology, climate change, and natural resource management, and published several papers in the peer-reviewed journals. So as I mentioned in the previous session, so the aim of organizing this pre-event is twofold. One is the sensitization for this Congress, and the other one is scouting the ideas in the form of knowledge, tool, products, etc. for showcasing during the Congress, which is the second United Nations World Geospatial Information Congress. We are going to host that Congress between 10 to 14 October 2022 at the city of Hyderabad. So just give you a little background. Many of you must already aware that at the global level, UNGGIM, which is the UN Group of Geospatial Information Management, is responsible for managing the geospatial information since 2011. India, among other countries, India is also a founder member of this body. And India was given the responsibility of hosting the second UNWGIC with a theme of Geo Enabling the Global Village. No one should be left behind, which is in line with our Honorable PM's vision, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So just to inform you, the first Congress was organized in China in 2018, and where they highlighted their strength towards the geospatial ecosystem. So UNGGM Secretariat wants to organize the theme of the Congress based upon the 9 strategic pathways, which is called IGIF, Integrated Geospatial Information Framework. So in the 9 strategic pathways, they have been segregated mainly in 3 main pillars. One is governance, that includes the financial, policy, etc. The second one is the technology, that includes innovation, data, standards, etc. And the last and very important pillar is community and engagement. That includes the role of civil society and youth for strengthening the geospatial information framework. So that's what today's session about. So from DST side, during Congress, our aim is to provide the example of the best practices, or you can say the geospatial solution adopted in our country. Maybe similar problems are being faced by other developing countries as well, like us. So they can also be benefited if we showcase some example of these practices based upon the geospatial technologies. So in this session, we are going to have 9 presentations from different speakers. All the speakers are requested to please be brief and adhere to the timeline of 15 minutes or so that we can have enough time for discussion also. And please bring out the main highlights, and that can be showcased during the Congress. Just to inform you, few such selected examples of best practices will be recognized by UNGGM Secretariat during the Congress. So Shamita ji, Dr. T.P. Singh has joined here.
He is not yet joined, but he will. So, but I think we can go ahead with the presentations.
Okay, so we can have later, his remarks later.
We can have his remarks later. He said he would join shortly. He was in a meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one we have today is Mayur Kumbhar. Mayur, are you ready?
Yeah, for the simulation of urban fluvial flooding in Pune city. So yes, over to you, Mr. Mayur.
We have about 7 of you today, so we would request you to really stick to 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I will share my screen. Is it in a full screen share mode?
Yeah, it's visible in full screen mode. So please, you go ahead.
Is it in presentation mode?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Hello. Namaskar. Myself Mayur Kumba. Today my topic is on a simulation of urban pluvial flooding in Pune city. So the main goal of selecting this topic was the SDG goal, which is 13, SDG 13 goal, which is seeks to combat a climate change and address its impact. As we know, the climate change has affect the intensity and the frequency of the precipitation. Means the rainfall has been increased, and it goes for a longer hours, which leads to the flooding. So it is a small step. This project is a small step towards this goal of SDG 13. So this project was in my master's project. It has been guided by Dr. Lakshmikant Kumar, and it's been co-guided by Dr. Shamita Kumar and the Professor Carl Snyder. The question over here is what exactly is this urban pluvial flood? So it is a type of a flood which occurs due to the surface runoff generated due to the heavy rainfall. When there is a heavy rainfall, and especially in the urban areas, due to the compromised drainage system, the water doesn't percolate into the drainage system. And as we know, due to the urbanization, there has been increased in the impervious surfaces over in the cities. So the water doesn't percolate easily into the ground surface, which leads into the massive movement of the water, which leads into the flash flood. This is the proper simple meaning of this urban pluvial floods. So how this urban pluvial floods has impacted the life? As we can see over here, this is the images from Pune city, which there was an event occurred on 2019. As we can see over there, the people's life get affected due to the collection of the pond or in this particular area. As also we can see there is a destruction of the public property, which leads into the economical losses of the city, as well as sometimes there is also losses to the lives. Recently in India, there has been many events of the pluvial floods occurred from 2004 to 2020. Recently there was a flood in Hyderabad 2020, as well as in Pune. So for this purpose, I selected Pune as my study area. As we know that in Pune on 25th September 2019, there was a massive flash flood, pluvial flood, which occurred into the area in this Pune city, which killed more than 21 people, and more the people, and the losses to the properties was much. The economic losses was also occurred due to this rainfall. So there is a need to develop some kind of model which can help us to mitigate this problem and solve we can identify the areas which are more risk to these floods. So so there are the different models which are used for modeling this flood, which are ranked from low to the high accuracy. So there is an RFS model which has a very low accuracy, but it takes a very less time to compute. As we go further, there are some models like 2D surface model, which has a very high accuracy, but it takes a lot of time to simulate the for computation. And also the data required is also very high resolution data. Similarly with 1D and 2D coupled model. So for my project, I was working on the 2D surface flow model. And so for that, there are for this 2D surface flow model, there are some of the models in commercial as well as open source domain. So my focus was to look into the open source software, which is an HECRUS software. So my research question was here to do the high resolution model provides a better simulation of urban pluvial floods. So my aim was here to simulate the pluvial floods in the Pune city using a high resolution data set. And the objective over here was to model this 2D surface overland flow using a high resolution DEM in a HECRUS software. And as we need to validate the model, because we need an validation that actually this model is showing the good results. So second objective was to validate this model with a measured simulation results with available river gauge. And for this, specifically for this model, we required a very minimum data. First, we need a proper high resolution DEM, which is of this is an DSM of 5-meter resolution, and we require a second thing is an LULC, LULC of that area. And next one, we need an rainfall data of that event. So I collected a rain gauge data, which is in one hour interval rainfall data. And for validation purpose, I collected the river gauge data from Dattawadi river gauge station, and also the discharge from the Khadakwasla Dam. During this event, there was a discharge from the Khadakwasla Dam also. So we need to input this data into that model also. So this is a discharge from the Khadakwasla Dam. So the methodology means this is an overview of a model, how the model works. So for model, we require just a minimum kind of data. First, we need an DSM, which is a very high resolution 5-meter land use map and a precipitation data. This in this Hecker's 2D model, when we input this DSM and the land use map, it helps us to create an 2D mesh. It is a mesh of an hexagonal shape or of a rectangular shape, which has a sizes, different sizes. As for this model, I use 30-meter by 30-meter size. We can reduce the size as per our needs. And also for running this model, I use an unsteady diffusion wave equation, which runs on a gravity and the friction of the flow. And after using this 2D, after creating this 2D mesh and integrating this unsteady diffusion wave equation, 2D unsteady flow on this mesh, we get an output run of depth of that particular area. After that, we need to validate with the river gauge stations. Is it the values of the stage hydrograph measured from the model is same as that the measured values from the river gauge station, and we get the final output. So this is a model which after running we can see how the water flows over in that area. Here we can see how water gets collected, and this is the maximum level, maximum depth at that event which occurred. So after importing that, in this model we have different options to import that data into a GIS softwares like ArcGIS and QGIS. Here we can create an flood inundation risk map. Here we can clearly see in this map, we created a risk map for the Pune city. The red area shows that the water depth over here is greater than 1 meter, and the green area shows it's less than 0.5 meter. So here in the northern part of the Pune city, we can clearly see there has been a lot of water which is depth is greater than 1 meter. From the map, we can easily identify which areas are affected more. This is one map which we can create from that Hacker software. Second is we can also create a velocity distribution. So here we can clearly see, as we have heard in the news also, the in the Pune city, the nalas which were there present have a very has caused many destruction. Means like we have heard that the cars were washed out into these nalas. So from this map, we can clearly see the nalas has a very high velocity, and the areas which has a very low velocity means we can consider that the water gets means the ponds gets collected over in these areas. The water doesn't flow over here. So this maps is shows that kind of things. And the third map is of a percentage time in inundated map. Here we can see that it shows that at which place the water was staying for more time. Means what at the percentage of the time was more over there. So in the northern part, means it is a Kothurud and Karve Nagar area of Pune city, which shows that 80 to 90% of water was been stayed for the more time over there. So we can identify the different areas by this model, and this is the all from the model from the validation of the results which we acquired from the map. We can see that, but we need some statistical identification for this validation. So for this, I use 3 statistical parameters of index agreement, MEF, and the correlation coefficient. So the index agreement kind of shows a very proper, very good result. It shows a 0.99. the index agreement value ranges from 0 to 1. It shows like 1 is then the perfect value. So it shows 0.9, almost 1. And the MEF also shows 0.762, which is a optimal value for the, because it ranges from -infinity to 1, which 1 is a very good value, on 0.76 and like optimal value. Same with the correlation coefficient. Means from this we can say that the model has validated properly. Means there has been means the model has tried to show the exact replication of the event of that event. And after, so we, from the graph over here, which is an observed and the simulated stage hydrographs, here we can see that at some places the model little minimizes and some places it overestimated estimated the model, but we can fine tune also that fine tune. So my discussion over here is that we, by using high resolution 5-meter cartosat DEM and 30 mesh grid, we can use this model into different small regions to with minimum data like rain event and digital elevation model. We can also we can also reduce the, means we can use more high resolution for accurate results. Like we can use 2-meter cartosat DEM, or we can use UAVs to like 1-meter resolutions for and also the grid. The 30-meter mesh grid is also very important. We can reduce the grid. We can use like 5-meter by 5-meter mesh grid, but it will the time of computation will be cost, because for this model, for 30-meter mesh grid, it took me for 1 week to run this model. So if we reduce it to the 5-meter, it may take more. Means we require high configuration computers for that to run this model. And so this model can help us to detect the flood waters and also identify the low risk of the flooding, and which we can help, which can be helped for producing the flood map. For this Pune city, we were able to identify the high risk areas, low risk areas, and the medium risk areas. So the conclusion over here is that the HECRES model can be used for the Muta catchment to simulate the pluvial flooding event. But for this purpose, we need some, we can also, for proper validation, we require to some fine tuning into model, which like we can add more hydrological parameters. Like for this model, I have not considered the soil parameters. We can add soil parameters, soil map into this, and also we can add infiltration layers. And by using a very high resolution DEMS or UAVs images, we can add more geometrical data into our model. So so this model also kind of help us to reduce the disaster risks which are related to the target of the SDG 13, which is strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to the climate related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. So this is the model can help us to. Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Dr. Kumar, I think you are muted. You are saying something.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mayur. Please stay on for questions. And we have our next speaker, Dr. Lakshmikanta Kumar from the Survey of India. I'm just filling in until Dr. Singh comes in.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon to the chair and co-chair hosted by Shubha Pandey, ma'am, Dr. Shubha Pandey, ma'am. And I would like to thank Professor Shamita Kumar, ma'am, and Colonel Sunil Patepuri, sir, to giving me the opportunity to present here. So without any delay, I want to start my presentation. I hope everyone can see my presentation. Yeah, am I audible? And
yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And today I'm going to discuss about how scenario-based urban growth simulation models can be useful in sustainable urban planning. So this is a very important topic, and I'm going to cover about UN Sustainability Development Goal number 11. So the presentation, so Just give me one moment. I think now I'm in a full screen mode. I hope everyone can see, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So you know, my presentation is organized in 4 sections. The first section is about introduction. So this introduction, we are going to discuss about how urbanization and what is urbanization, what are the challenges that exist with respect to the India. And the second section is focused on UN SDG goal number 11, so which is a sustainable cities and communities. This is one of the important SDG because urban population is increasing rapidly all over the world. And the third section, which is discusses about the scenario-based urban growth simulation model, which I developed during my doctoral thesis under the guidance of Professor Shamita Kumar ma'am and Professor Carl Snyder. And then we are going to use this model, how we are going to use this model for a real world situation. One is from developing country and another case study for from developed country. So these are the presentation introduction. So how the presentation structure is. So let's start with, why we are caring about urbanization. So because you can see that world is urbanizing quite rapidly. In 21st century, it is time to be India's urban century. So more people in India is moving towards the urban areas. For example, in this graph from United Nations shows that by 2050, more than 50% of the Indian population will live in cities. And at the same time, the rural population is keep on decreasing. So ultimately, future is urban. So why we need urbanization? Because urbanization provides a very good facilities. For example, we have access to the better infrastructure, and it provides employment and also amenities and better and healthcare and also education. So even if in India especially, the urban population is around 34%, but they are contributing 63% of to the GDP. So imagine if we are going to increase the urban population, so obviously it will contribute to more to the GDP. So we are going to achieve our dream, that 5 trillion economy. So urbanization is a very key thing to focus on. However, if the urbanization is not properly planned and not properly, we are done it, then what happens? It causes several side effects and also ill effects, negative effects. For example, pollution. I think most of the polluted cities are located in India, unfortunately. And also, every day we are habitual for traffic jams and slums and sanitation. These are very big issues to handle with. So why these are happening? So that's because of the our plans are not up to the mark maybe. So that is the reason maybe UN is focused in its goal number 11. That goal number 11 says that sustainable cities and communities. So what is the major objective of this goal number 11 is to make cities and human settlements inclusive. So basic services should be available to all the citizens of the cities, and safe. They are safe and resilient and sustainable. So to achieve this particular thing in the century where we are running very rapidly towards the urbanization, what we need actually, we need something which is quite new and also intelligent to do the urban planning in a different kind of way. So not like stick to the old methods. So we need some new methods to plan our cities more safer, more affordable, more resilient, and to reduce the ill effects of urbanization. So that is the major goal of this United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 11. So where we stand in terms of India, India is urbanizing quite rapidly. So because of this, the traditional planning approach, what we are going to use in regional development plans and city development plans, they are outpasses by the urbanization. So urbanization is quite rapid, so that the plans are not cope up with that. So why these plans generally fails? Why? Because they doesn't account the bottom-up processes. So bottom-up processes means a city generally evolves from a millions of people comes together, they think together, and they take decisions based on their social, economic, and so many criteria where they want to live, and there are so many things. So those bottom-up processes generally missed in these plans. And the plans are mostly static, and because if the plan came, so that is 2030 or 2050, the plan allows some particular regions, causes the freezing of land. So the people try to occupy it, and influence people will try to grab those lands. So these are all things happens. So these are the issues which makes these plans not up to the expectations. So we need something which incorporates these both the top-down approaches from the experts and the planners, and also bottom-up approaches. We need to account something about bottom-up approaches. So this is a way we need some new tool. So to address these all things at one hand, we need suitable methods and models. So which accounts the spontaneous growth of a city. Spontaneous growth of a city, that means how a city grows from the millions of people that are living together in a specified boundary, and also top-down planning approaches. So this is where we need something new models and tools. So to take this, and we we went through some things and just found out a suitable framework for to make a SUSM. SUSM means a scenario-based urban growth simulation model. For example, this model uses a geospatial datasets. These geospatial datasets are easily available, so you don't need to spend a single penny on to get these datasets. And these datasets are remote sensing datasets. For example, let's say an urban area is there, and one point of time, for example, say in 1990, and there is another urban area in 2020. So we have two urban areas. So we can use these satellite images to produce land use, land cover image, land use. Land cover
you
map.
have about 3 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I will just complete it. Then we are going to use the policy drivers and physical drivers, and coming to the SUSM. So this SUSM is a stochastic cellular automata model. So basically it has a very important component, that is a scenario component. So this scenario component is it will allow planners to restrict some areas from the urban growth, and also some areas to the to stem the growth, and also they can point some seed points. So these are tested in some real world application like Pune, which is a complex administrative unit, which is a defense area and urban area. And we use these remote sensing derived data sets, and as well as the Pune regional plan. So first, what we done is we simulated the city by using a historic scenario, and then we incorporated the plan, and then we see the growth without plans. So let's see the results. So the result is, if we are going to see the, simulate the city without, by using historical scenario, you can see the left side what remote sensing observed, and the right side both by using two different calibration methods, logistic regression and artificial neural network. It looks like a similar thing. So the model is capable of capturing the reality. So the model is accurate up to 75% as a producer, overall 95% is accurate. So by using this model, what we have done is we analyze the effectiveness of a Pune regional development plan. So these are the results of zoom out results of the simulation results. And when we analyze the plans of Pune, and we found out that most of the Pune is not went as per the plan. So what we had, so you can see that clearly the Pune's urban growth is outpaced by the outpaces the regional development plan. So then we simulated the city without any plans. So without any plans suggests that Pune is went as per the without plans in the most possible way. So the next is how we can use this SUSM in a sustainable development goal, number 11. So this is a case study from a developed country, Germany, which is a Rhein-Ruhr metropolitan area. So the study objective is to explicitly use the SUSM simulations to assess the goal number 11 of United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, and also its climate and spatial implicit planning on climate change prevention strategies to assess the climate change prevention strategies. So these are the results is that the SUSM is capable to simulate overall accuracy of 97%, so which is quite good if you say a simulation model. And then we use this to project the growth of a 2030. So that is the 2030 is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 2030 time frame. So after we use these simulation results with the plan, for example, how if we are going to incorporate the Rhein-Ruhr metropolitan plan and then simulate the results by using SUSM, and without plan, if we are going to simulate the SUSM results, and we measure the indicator number 11.3.1, that is a ratio of land consumption rate to the population growth, which is a Type 2 indicator. And if the value is less than 1, you can say that land use happen very effective way. If it is greater than 1, you can say that land use is inefficient way. You can see that most of the cases, this table shows that 82 municipal corporations moving away from the efficiency, and 15 are using efficient land use practices, and 38 are moving away from the efficiency. So these are inefficient planning as found in 6 municipality areas. So these are the results, how you can use a scenario-based urban growth simulation model to see the future and to get the better plans for land use and land cover planning. And we also use the SUSM results for climate prevention strategy. For example, you can see these red dots are the crowdsourced dots, which tells the thermal stress. So you can see if you superimpose the simulations of 2030, you can see that in the future, that Bone city will going to experience more thermal stress because of the increasing urban growth. So this is how you can use SUSM results for climate strategy analysis also. So these are the 2 case studies, which is one from developing country and one from developed nation, how you can use a scenario-based urban growth simulation models for a better urban plans to achieve the sustainable development goals. So the potential applications, you can use this for zoning policy analysis, and also you can use this scenario analysis module in SUSM for better planning of industries and transportation network. So at one stage, and the conclusion is that you can use SUSM as a decision support tool for urban planning, and this is this is how SUSM you can use. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity, ma'am. And I hope I completed my presentation. Any doubts you can ask? Any questions? Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Please stay on for the question and answers. I would request you to stop sharing the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
And in the meanwhile, it's Dr. T.P. Singh, the co-chair of our session, has also joined us. It's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Singh. Welcome to this very important session on youth, because the entire UNWGIC Congress has a huge focus on youth. So I would just like to briefly introduce Dr. Singh before handing over the session to him. So Dr. Singh brings with him a very vast experience of working in the field of geospatial technologies, both in India as well as abroad. Following his PhD, he's done a master's in remote sensing from the Paris and Marie Curie University in Paris. And since then, after working with several organizations of He's joined the Symbiosis Institute of Geoinformatics, where he is currently the director of the institution. He of course brings with him a very vast experience of working in different sectors, and I think that we have one of the best people who we can have in this session for especially guiding the youth to present their innovative projects at the UNWGIC. So welcome, Dr. Singh. We have 2 presentations over now. The updated schedule has already been sent to you, and we have the 3rd speaker, that's Ms. Deepa, who would be speaking on unsupervised feature learning for mineral mapping of hyperspectral data. Yeah, Deepa, she's there.
Okay.
So with this, I would like to hand over the session to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Presentation with the DST, because this project has been assigned to me by the DST under a scheme for young scientists and technologists, seed grant. So the presentation I am here to present, the title of that is the Ecosystem Services Evaluation for Sustainable Development Goals using geospatial technology. I am presenting a case study of Kashmir Valley. So I will start. We all know that natural hazards are part and parcel of Himalayan regions, and Kashmir is one such region which is very vulnerable to natural hazards, whether it be floods and whether it be earthquakes. And there are some other natural hazards also in other parts of the country. We have oceanic hazards. And we often try to understand the causes of natural hazards, floods, and all that, but we somehow forget what are the services the ecosystems provide us in mitigating those hazards. I'm going to focus on that very particular aspect. I am actually evaluating the services in my project, in this whole project. I'm evaluating the services natural vegetation is providing in making our region proof from floods. So in order to solve our problems in ground, the natural hazards problem, we all, scientists and stakeholders, we should always have a geospatial thinking. We should understand where does the problem occur and what who are the people who are affected and what are the processes involving. So geospatial thinking is one of the best things. I as a student of remote sensing and GIS, I thank that I am very thankful that I had been at a very particular point in my career being introduced to this technology, because what I see or what geospatial scientists see and how they tackle the problems is very not all scientists, I believe, maybe they have their own domain, but we see we see very holistically how the things work and how the things process and what is the mechanism. We all know, 2014 witnessed the worst floods of the century. It was characterized a 50-year flood cycle in Kashmir region. Whole of the Kashmir Valley was flooded. Everything. Luckily, we didn't have the much loss of life. Luckily, but we had a tremendous loss of property. Everything. These are some of the photographs I'm presenting. These are the main. This is the Srinagar city. This is to my left, to the left of this presentation, I am showing a pre-flood Landsat 8 image that was taken on 25th August 2014. And to my right is the post-flood. Whole basin. This area, and this area, this is a rugged, this is a Himalayan region, we call it a Western Himalayas, this is the Pir Panjal region. And the whole, as we in a Kashmir Valley, we live in this basin. And whole of this basin was flooded. And we haven't seen in our memories, even our ancestors hadn't seen such a devastation at such a large scale. So this very particular event helped us as a scientist and as a policymakers, because I am working in a remote sensing department. I am working in a state remote sensing department in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. So we thought many works had been conducted. Some owed this very particular disaster. This is another image. This is the resource set, and this is how it was. This is again how the flooded. This is the normal image, Google Earth image, and this is the flooded image. Everything was flooded. Everything was flooded. You can see another. There are another few photographs. Aerial image, satellite image. You can see this is a the playground, and everything was flooded. Nobody had thought such devastation at such a large scale. Even when the water entered to our houses, we were still thinking that it will go off, on itself. We didn't thought that it would be such a disaster. These are some of the photographs. I will just this thing, when we studied, if you go to the chronology of the publication that have been published and the works that have been presented, done throughout these 7 or 8 years of last 7 or 8 years, we will have tried to understand why this happened. Some owe it to the precipitation, some owe it to the climatic change variability, and some owe it to the destruction of the wetlands. But some out-of-box concept, we developed in the Department of Ecology. We developed a concept, and that very concept I submitted to the Department of Science and Technology, and I thank the Department of Science and Technology that they granted me this project, and they approved that project. Under that project, what we thought that why don't we see what is the role of natural vegetation? Because our region, as was rightly said by Dr. Kanta Kumar, that urbanization is the future. In our region, what is happening? There is an expansion. There is an horizontal, not vertical. In our region, in Kashmir region, there is no vertical expansion. There is an horizontal expansion. People are moving towards the mountains, and we have limited space. So why not an understanding of the natural phenomena? Why not an understanding is developed how much the natural vegetation of the valley, they provide services. How much the services natural vegetation provides in helping us, local populations, to cope with the floods. This service we call the flood risk reduction services. We know that we have models available that help us to evaluate, calculate the sediment, erosion, soil erosion. But very few of us have done how much is retained by the natural vegetation. If we can calculate how much sediment is retained by the natural vegetation, we can characterize that how much it is important in helping the region to cope with the floods. So this was a very particular idea we developed, and we submitted it to the Department of Science and Technology, and they approved this project. Under this very project, we also had an important work that we wanted to understand where could be the dams located, so that we can help management of floods. So this very particular exercise we did, and it stands published in a remote sensing journal, MDPI. So in throughout, because I have already talked about 7 minutes, I will move quickly. My main presentation will focus on the highlights. I won't go into the methodology deeply, but I will focus on my problem redressal. What was the rationale, and what is the status, and what were the significant results, and finally, if is there a replicability of the project or not. So I will be discussing highlighting those only. Ecosystem services are many. We have provisioning services, we have regulatory services, and provisioning services are those that provide us the food, and the regulatory services are those regulatory services are those that help us. Ecosystem services. Excuse me, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. I have a 2-year daughter. She was calling me, so I just took her away. I'm very sorry. So this we have understanding how ecosystems are intertwined with our socio-economic systems is very important. Only then we can understand the sustainable development goals. This work finds its application in SDG 6, SDG 7, SDG 11, and SDG 15. I'm going to focus on these 4 at the end of my presentation. So ecosystem service assessments routinely focus on ecosystem properties. That has been done till now, without focusing whether or for whom the actual benefits are produced. This was the focus of this whole event also. We understand how much the sediment is eroded, but we don't know who are the stakeholders and who are the actual people who are getting affected. So it is important, we need to understand how much the land system or our this whole system is producing some phenomenon, and who are the affected peoples. My work was focused on how much the risk services, flood risk reduction services are provided by the natural vegetation, and who are the affected. I joined both of these things together. Just glimpse. This is the Kashmir Valley. We all know this is a representation, not stick representation of Kashmir Valley. This is a valley. This is the Western Himalayas, and this is the Pir Panjal range. And we have a river that is running throughout the basin of Kashmir Valley that is called the Jhelum River, which is part of the Indus Basin. It is an Indus Basin tributary. And we have a very freshwater lake in Kashmir Valley that's called the Bular Lake. And this whole basin during 2014, right from here until here, this whole basin was almost, it was flooded. Himalayan regions such as Kashmir, it provides an excellent opportunity to advance our natural capital assessment approach and integrate their results in development policy and planning. Why? Because 70% of our population and 40% of the gross GDP is reliant on agriculture, hydropower, livestock, fisheries. And then recent IPCC report ranked Jammu and Kashmir as the third most vulnerable state, which is a UT now, to climate change disasters. Not only this, I didn't only concluded. In this work we not only saw what is the present risk services provided by the natural vegetation, but we also tried to assess how would these services be affected under changing climate scenarios, because indicators of climate change scenario are loud and clear in Kashmir. We are already seeing, there are implications of depleting cryosphere. We are seeing under changing climate on water, energy, and food security. Kashmir has lost almost 20% of the glacial mass. There's a shifting hydrograph peaks happening. Almost 14,000 hectares of forests undergone conversions. My research, this is the highlight of my research. What this research tried to focus on, it focused on drinking water quality degradation due to sediment loads under changing climate. It tried to assess reduce dry seasonal base flow for drinking water availability under changing climate. And the third objective was flood risk reduction for the flood prone villages in the whole Kashmir Valley. In this presentation, I am only going to discuss only the third objective of this work, this project. Inclusion of ecosystem services information into national scale development and climate adaptation planning has not become common practice in India. I must say that despite demand from the decision makers, identifying, this is very important, we need to understand that identifying where ecosystem services originate, location wise, we need to understand, because geospatial technology provides us the information of the location. Servers ecosystem services originate, and to whom are the benefits flow under current and future climatic conditions are the central questions of this research. And very least study, I have been in this field now from the last 3 years, that very least study has been done, identifying, locating the ecosystem services as far as the modeling is concerned, and who are the people who are getting affected. So the present research tried to assess where and how ecosystems provide critical benefits to Kashmir's population and infrastructure. And I will just move. So this is the whole methodology I employed. I used a model that is called INVEST model. I had a four, almost 5-stage progress. It was in the first stage, we generated the data sets. Then we provided the data products from the remote sensing. Then I used a biophysical supply model, sediment delivery model, and sediment seasonal water yield model. So something like I finally reached here: flood reduction service provisioning, dry season base flow service provisioning, and this was final results we got. I will just move because this is a very lengthy presentation, but I will just move to the results. These are the this is very important slide. This is the village. This is the village layer of whole Kashmir Valley. This is very important slide. This is one of the results. I was able to calculate the sediment export in tons per hectare per year under current vegetation conditions. And I finally, we finally evaluated sediment retention services provided by the current vegetation, which is this is divided into three colors. Red ones are the very high. These are those areas that are providing very huge sediment retention services, almost from 300 to 3,200 tons per hectare per year. This is where the SDG goals come into play. That means these are those areas that need to be well thought of before taking any developmental activities on these areas. It is not, this is it is a concept like disaster and risk. Risk is always associated with people, and disaster can happen anywhere. This is a scenario like is a scenario of a disaster, something like a disaster scenario. But I needed to understand who are the people. This is some who are the people that are getting affected. And this is the climate change scenario. I will moving because I'm running short of time. I understand this. So this is the sediment retention service. I know this is the demand. That is the people. How much people they are demanding. This is the people. This is the demand. When we multiply the service with the demand, we get the sediment retention service provisioning. And these are those areas that are very important. These red areas are very important as far as their conservation is concerned, because if we do any developmental activities there, our short-term developmental goals might, make us, prove that this is very important. You can do a developmental activity. You can start an infrastructure area. Construct an infrastructural facility there. But the services they provide is much more as compared to the development side. So not only this, we also try to assess how much these areas overlap with the already conservation priorities. These are there are almost 19 protected area networks, and protected area networks are almost everywhere we see. They are the biodiversity driven. Wherever there is high biodiversity and human lead knowledge is employed, so as to we can demarcate those areas. But we saw with this study, this exercise, that the overlap between these protected areas and the conservation areas, we say that these areas should also be designated as conservation areas, is very less. Hotspots of current sediment retention service provision was observed to have less overlap than with the current protected area of the valley. There was on an average 15% overlap between the hotspots of sediment retention for drinking water quality areas and the 29 protected areas of the valley. Our results confirm that biophysical measures of ecosystem supplied alone are inadequate for determining the area that deliver the greatest ecosystem service benefit to the people or infrastructure. And instead, priority ecosystem provision areas are shaped by variation in spatial distribution of ecosystem supply and demand. I will just the significant findings by highlighting areas where loss of natural ecosystems would have.
Dr. Gohar, request you to please conclude.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm just concluding with this thing. The work is useful for the Jammu and Kashmir State Government Department, such as Jammu and Kashmir State Disaster Management Authority, State Forest Department, Public Health and Engineering Department. These shall be the direct beneficiaries of the outputs of the project. Once the results of the pilot project are assessed, these departments have decided to extend their assessment to other ecosystem service provisioning, such as for hydropower and ecosystem provisioning. And these are the four SDGs that are directly focusing on these. SDG 6, which ensures availability and sustainability of sustainable management of water, SDG 7, 11, and 15. And this is I'm acknowledging the kind help, and I'm very grateful to Department of Science and Technology who has given me this project. And these are some of the significant publications we have done through this work. And this is my Google Scholar. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry. In between, I had my little 2-year daughter came and she just interrupted the presentation. I'm very sorry. I had to rush. I'm very sorry, sir. If there are any questions, I will be more than happy to answer during the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Gohar, for that your excellent presentation on that ecosystem indicator and the services. In fact, this is a very important topic when we are working on that the very fragile Himalayan environment, and that indicators are very, very important to assess that where the fragile and where the more vulnerability is more over there. So thank you for that, your insight on utilization of remote sensing and GIS and connected with the different SDG goals. If any question and answer question would be there, that I love to take those questions. If anybody having any question.
Dr. Singh, we are taking the questions in the end so that there is
Okay, fine.
enough time
So
for the
that's great. Okay, thank you. So now we are moving ahead, and I think that Ms. Deepa, if you have that your or we have received Ms. Deepa PowerPoint presentation, so we can go ahead with the Ms. Deepa, Dr. Kumar.
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah. So yes, Ms. Deepa, that no unsupervised feature learning for mineral mapping of hyperspectral data set.
So good afternoon. So today I'm here to present concept regarding
please limit your presentation for 10 minutes. Ms.
Okay,
Deepa,
yeah,
please
sure.
limit your presentation.
So this is regarding how
10 minutes
unsupervised
only.
learning. Okay, fine, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Okay, so the concept is about how unsupervised learning techniques can be used for mineral mapping of hyperspectral data. So, myself, research scholar from NITK Suratkal, Department of Water Resources and Ocean Engineering. So, as we all know, so the contents regarding the introduction and how geospatial technologies and this mineral mapping technologies can be mapped to achieve SDGs, and the methodology involves how different architectures from deep learning models can be utilized in the current study. So can you please move on to next slide? So coming to RS and GIS. So it has been pointed out that whatever the conventional data source we have are not sufficient to achieve SDGs. So the Earth observation data, which gathers more information about physical, biological, as well as chemical reactions of Earth terrain, so via remote sensing technologies are very useful in achieving SDGs compared to conventional data. So in this regard, RS and GIS techniques utilize satellite data as well as airborne data with synoptic view, which covers the entire global as well as local at various spatial and temporal resolutions. So these approaches, in addition to whatever the field data we collect, can provide a better insight to achieve SDGs. So can you please move on to next slide? Okay, so the geospatial data is one of the most promising data sources in this regard. So it can be applied for monitoring the progress. So how these data can be applied for SDGs and how the progress is going on. So these can be used very effectively to achieve most of the SDGs. So furthermore, whatever the scientific results that are provided with the help of these geospatial technologies coupled with remote sensing and hyperspectral data, it can provide a strong basis for policy making, which promotes sustainable development in communities both at local, regional levels as well as global levels. So this corresponding figure, it shows various RS and GIS based methods to implement SDGs. So maybe it may start from agriculture or healthcare or food safety, like urban planning, land use land cover mapping, smart city planning, maybe detection of some hazards, so environmental pollution and oil spills, and identification of some fish zones, so deforestation and much more, like estimating the forest biomass. So all these factors contribute to SDGs. So next slide. So in order to accomplish this, we need a data framework. So a proper data framework starts from
मेरा presentation होगा अभी तो question and answers के लिए wait कर रहा हूँ.
Global level. So this is the data hierarchy, like how the data is accumulated and how it is from local to global level.
Request to Dr. Lakshmi Kant, please mute yourself.
So next slide, can you please move on to next slide? So okay, so all these whatever the discussion happened so far, so how that can be applied for mineral mapping. So of course the mineral mapping is related to mining industry. This mining industry has a lot of scope to achieve almost all the 17 SDGs. So directly it can have a positive impact on achieving SDGs. So this has an unprecedented opportunity to mobilize significant human, physiological and technological, and it can also make use of some financial resources to achieve advanced goals. So this mining can foster economic development. So how exactly it can provide decent employment opportunities, and it can provide advancement in manufacturing technology, and it can also increase the revenue, both taxable and non-taxable, and also infrastructure related facilities can be improved. So next slide. So in order to achieve this, there are certain initiatives that mining companies has to take off. So those are nothing but they have to extract the minerals in a responsible way without harming the nature. So that the less waste is generated in the entire process, and safety should be the utmost priority, and new sustainable technologies from geospatial as well as RS and whatever the advanced geospatial technologies we have, that has to be incorporated in mining industries. And it also has to concentrate on local communities, like people working in mining industries, so they may prone to health hazards. So those issues has to be taken into account, and harmful emissions coming out of these mining industries has to be minimized, and which improves the environmental stewardship. So next slide. So when these mining companies committed to all these SDGs will benefit from improved relationships. That is, they have to collaborate with various government and industry sectors and financial partners, so that they can improve and work towards achieving SDGs. So if they fail to engage meaningfully with SDGs, will put their operations at risk, both in long as well as short term. Next slide. So now coming to the implementation part, currently I'm working on mineral mapping of hyperspectral data. So this is the RGB image of that particular data set. So can you please move on to next slide? So these are the specifications of the data set, which was acquired in the year 2011 from Everest Sensor. It's an airborne platform. So the location is Kipwright, Nevada, USA. So the spectral and spatial resolution is 10 nanometer and 20 meter respectively, and the spectral range in which the sensor operates is 0.4 to 2.5 micrometer, and it comprises of 224 bands. So can you please move on to next slide? Okay, so when it comes to mineral exploration, we look into the spectral information. So the unique spectral signatures are present for each minerals. So here we need to pick out, okay, which wavelength range is suitable for extracting a particular mineral. So when it comes to the data exploration, we in particular, if we focus on shortwave infrared wavelength region, so there we have around 2 to 2.5 micrometer spectral range. It covers unique spectral signatures. So we have various minerals of sulfates, carbonates, and hydroxyl bearing minerals. So these minerals are spectrally very distinct, like kaolinite, buddingtonite, alunite, calcite, muscovite, etc. So these play a vital role in mineral exploration and characterization of the terrain. So can you please move on to next slide? So next, coming to implementation part. So when it comes to minerals, so traditionally, only very few pre-processing techniques have been applied on mineral exploration compared to land cover mapping. So when we move on to land cover mapping, we have lots of deep learning models and various pre-processing techniques to classify the data. But when it comes to mineral exploration, we have very limited work carried out. So this is an attempt to extract features from mineral data in an unsupervised way with the help of 3D convolutional autoencoded models. So these deep learning models try to extract the prominent features from the data itself without any use of label information. So whatever the problem we have in hyperspectral data is, it is voluminous and we have very limited ground truth, and the training samples to train each of these classes are very much limited. So in such cases, this unsupervised learning will be a better choice, so that we can extract the features without labels, and also we can process the data efficiently by compressing. Normally, autoencoders are used for data encompression. So convolutional autoencoders, in the sense we can explore both spectral as well as spatial. So the 3D models help us to explore mineral data in a better way. So the first slot shows the original image and the second slot shows the reconstructed image of different bands.
So
Can
Ms.
we move
Deepa,
on to
you
next?
have 2 minutes to conclude.
Okay. So next slide. So next, whatever the 3D model was developed, so it had a lot of issues, like the training time was too much. It was taking around 60 minutes to train for feature extraction. So the next concept was we used knowledge distillation, that is to transfer the complicated network to a smaller dense network, so that the process of feature extraction is minimized. And along with feature extraction, so we are using some row sparsity constraints on the model, and we are extracting the prominent bands also. So feature extraction and feature selection are going to happen end to end. So in a single deep learning model will extract both the features and it will select. So dimensionality reduction, the entire process is carried out in an integrated model. So can we move on to next slide? So these are the results of those models. So this is a simple autoencoder using a single hidden layer. So next slide. So this is about a dense layer. So here the number of hidden layers are increased, which improves the reconstructed image quality. So next slide. So this is about using convolutional. So it captures both structural as well as the spectral and spatial information. So these are the results. So next slide. Okay, these are the numerical results, like after reconstructing what would be the means per error, structural similarity, and we have continued with like peak signal to noise ratio, and we have calculated what would be the classification accuracy, and the entire detailed analysis has been presented in a journal paper. So apart from this, we have also worked on generative adversarial networks, where we can generate virtual samples, so that all these factors contribute to improved SDGs. So we can, mining industry can also contribute more towards SDGs. So this is all about presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deepa. Thank you for that. Your excellent presentation on that. How hyperspectral can utilize for extraction of information, specifically the mineral and the geological part in the mining areas. Also, that you have mentioned about that connectivity of machine learning to extract that the more specific information using that the geospatial technology. And I hope that the connectivity with that the SDG that also proven that that utilization of a geospatial technology to achieve sustainable goal, specifically UN sustainable goals. Thank you, Deepa, for your presentation. Now I invite to Dr. Satya Kumar, Assistant Professor, Sastra University, Tanjore, for his presentation on geospatial added planning for a resilient urban green space network. Dr. Satya Kumar.
Thank you, Chairperson. So let me just share my screen. So hope I am audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So dear chairpersons and panelists, and also audience who are joining us from across the countries. So a very warm good afternoon. So today I will be talking about my PhD, a component of my PhD research, and my talk will be focusing on geospatial aided planning for resilient urban green space networks, with a special demonstration in Mumbai. So a brief introduction about me. I completed my PhD from IIT Bombay in 2020, and currently I'm working as Assistant Professor Research at Sastra Deemed University, Tanjore, Tamil Nadu. Yeah, so I think some of the previous speakers have also touched upon the need for preserving vegetation, especially in urban context. So as we know, we are moving towards a more urbanized world. So since 2008, we are living in a predominantly urbanized world, actually. And much of this urban rise is focused in the global south, that is in the developing countries context. And we can see that urbanization often in developing countries is accompanied with a huge pressure on the surrounding natural resources, especially green and blue spaces. So today I'll be focusing on one such critical natural resource, that is urban green space. So what is urban green space? So actually there is no clear definition for urban green space, but generally it is considered that all open spaces with vegetation cover inside or within the city boundaries can be considered as urban green spaces. So they can be planned or they can be unplanned. So all these can be part of urban green space. But why do urban green spaces matter? They matter because they provide various ecosystem services, they promote biodiversity, they have significant impact on public health and well-being, and they also influence property prices, and they have significant hydrological roles. I mean, in hydrological and water, in air cycle, nutrient cycle, etc. And critically, they also, on the cultural realm, they also foster social interaction. So we can see that urban green spaces have a lot of socio-economic, health, and cultural benefits. So where do urban green spaces feature in UN's Sustainable Development Goals? So we know that urban green spaces, they are directly mentioned in the target 11.7, which envisages provision of universal access to safe, inclusive, accessible, green and public spaces, particularly for women and children, old persons, and physically challenged. But the need for or the preservation of urban green spaces actually transcends this goal alone. So, for example, we also have significant impact on climate. So, urban green spaces can be a critical player in improving the climate resilience, especially in urban areas. And similarly, urban green spaces can also help to promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, and they can be used as a tool to prevent biodiversity loss, especially in urban context. So as a result, urban green spaces, they directly correlate with, they are directly connected to Sustainable Development Goal 11 and have huge implications for other allied goals also. Now, today in my talk, I will be focusing on one particular aspect of urban green space distribution, that is connectivity. So we all know that rapid urbanization in most of the developing countries is associated with fragmentation or loss of green cover. So from my research, I found that Mumbai had lost almost 22.6% of its green space during 2001 to 11. So here, this is a little snapshot of the Goregaon area in Mumbai, so which according to my research was found to have the maximum depletion of green cover due to extensive change of green spaces into commercial and residential spaces. But we know that contiguous green spaces have several ecological significance. So for example, they provide a larger habitat, they promote biodiversity, and they improve ecosystem services delivery. So I think Professor Miraj has touched upon the various ecosystem services, especially offered by Vegetation. Now, these structural connectivity of green spaces, they need to be monitored at neighborhood level so that we can have targeted greening actions exactly at the spot where or which deserve critical attention. Especially this is important in developing countries because given the constrained resources and informal urban growth, we need to target our greening actions at critical neighborhoods. So this requires cost-effective means for mapping and monitoring UGS connectivity at regular intervals. So in this aspect, geospatial techniques or specifically remote sensing and GIS play a critical part. So remote sensing, as we know, compared to ground-based methods, remote sensing offers more resource efficient technique for synoptic and repetitive monitoring of urban context and also green spaces. So it is cost effective and it can provide up-to-date information across multiple spectral and spatial, across multiple spatial and temporal resolutions. And coming to GIS, we use GIS to capture, store, manipulate, analyze, manage geographical data, and wherever decision-making process is involved, GIS plays a critical part. So in this study, we used a particular newly developed GIS tool called MSPA. So I'll be describing that in the coming slide. So MSPA stands for Morphological Spatial Pattern Analysis. So it is basically a mathematical morphological algorithm to segment binary patterns. So when you input a binary map, say green versus non-green spaces, it will use that map and it will implement a morphological algorithm and segment the green spaces into different connectivity classes listed here. So these 7 classes, they have their own distinct ecological importance. So for example, when we input the map, green space map, first we will get the core and islets. So islets are isolated green spaces, quite well removed from the other green spaces. Cores are green spaces surrounded by green spaces on all sides. Next, we can segment or identify edge and perforation. So edges demarcate the external perimeter of pores, and perforations denote the internal holes within the pores. Next, we can also have loops, so which are green spaces connected to the same patch, bridges which connect two different green cores, and branches, so which are emanating from a green core but are not connected anywhere. So as you can infer, there are significant ecological implications associated with each of this morphological class. So for example, core, it provides the primary habitat, it promotes biodiversity and ecosystem services. And for example, again, coming to islet, so it represents isolated habitats. So more the islets, more fragmentation can be detected. So from various literature, we have evidence for different ecological attributes associated with these classes. Now, the aim of this study was to present a geospatial approach to link green space morphological patterns and resilience to degreening. So specifically, we were interested to examine the decadal changes in green space structural connectivity in Mumbai, and to assess how different morphological classes, structural classes, responded to loss of green cover. And through this, we also wanted to identify what are the neighborhoods, which are the neighborhoods that lack critical green space structural classes. So my study area was Mumbai. So as you know, Mumbai is one of the largest cities in the world, and I will just mention the basic points. So Mumbai is divided into 88 census sections, which approximately denote the different neighborhoods in Mumbai. And broadly, you can consider Mumbai to be made of three sections. That is a city district, the western suburbs, and the eastern suburbs. So as you know, Mumbai has a peninsular geography, so there is a huge depth of physical space for development of more green spaces. And obviously, as we know, in the recent years, green spaces and generally ecological planning is a very sensitive topic, especially in Mumbai. So the data used for this study, first one was a digital map of census sections, basically the shapefile. So this was prepared based on the maps provided in PDF form by the government agencies. And next, we required the green space maps of 2001 and 11, our study period. So this was extracted from remote sensing satellite data using simple image processing techniques, namely normalized difference vegetation index. So this is a very simple index using which we can identify the vegetated areas, we map all vegetated areas irrespective of ownership and access. So the purpose of adopting simple methods was for the easier transferability of the approach, and this NDVI-based approach has been proved to be effective against other image processing techniques also in extracting urban green spaces. So please note that we followed a uniform spatial resolution, and there was a perfect seasonal homogeneity post-monsoon season. And we also
Dr. Satyakumar, you have 2 minutes to conclude, please.
Yes, sir. And our map accuracies were also satisfactory. So let me just gloss over the methodology. So I hope I'll focus on the key results that we found. So we found that between 2001 and 11, there was about loss of 22.6% decrease in green cover, urban green spaces. So, but different classes behave differently. So, for example, there was a decrease in core and perforation share, but there was an increase in bridge, loop, branch, edge, and island. So, this indicates a relative disintegration, fragmentation of green space network in Mumbai. And second, we see that different structural classes encountered the declining phenomenon differently. So, for example, though the overall decrease was 22.6, we can see that core experienced decrease of 35%. On the other hand, islets increased by 181%. So we can see that different classes had different resilience towards degrading. And we also see that the cores not only shrank, but they completely disappeared. Whereas on the other hand, islets, which are completely isolated from the cores, they proliferated. So the interesting aspect was, so we could see different morphological classes transitioning into different classes, but one was not possible. That is, no islets turned into perforation. Because for that to happen, more green spaces had to be developed. And since Mumbai generally witnessed a gradual reduction of green space, there was no possibility of islets turning into perforation. Then, interestingly, the novelty of this study was to analyze how different morphological classes performed, or what is the resilience to their degrading process. So what we did is, we analyzed the percentage of class area that has been retained or lost to other classes by the end of 2011. So for example, we could see that almost 60% of core in 2001 remained poor also in 2011. So when we compare the values for non-green space class, we could see that except for all others have predominantly turned into non-green. So this means that in terms of resilience to loss of green space, we can see that core performs the best and islet performs the worst. Though this is intuitive, we have ranked all other classes in a certain order in terms of their resilience. So this order basically represents an order of priority for conserving and augmenting green cover. So urban planners, they can adopt this ranking, and they can try to make islets into branches, and if possible branches into bridges into loops, and so on. So ultimately, the more the core, the better the ecological value of the green space network. So this was done also at the neighborhood level. So we found that almost out of the 88 census sections, almost 10 sections had no core green space in 2001, whereas that number had increased to 13 in 2011. So we have mapped the contribution or the composition of different morphological classes in each neighborhood also. So from that we could identify that the city district, the southern part of Mumbai, had almost very little core areas even at the start of the study period, that is 2001. However, during the study period 2001 to 11, much of the core depletion had happened in the eastern and western suburbs. So we could see that the cores that were the more resilient to green cover loss, despite being the most resilient, due to non-addition of significant core areas, there was much depletion of the existing cores. So our general recommendation is to add more cores across the city, particularly in the suburban neighborhoods. And more importantly, this approach can be scaled or can be transferred to other developing contexts, and we can find universal ranking of morphological classes with respect to the resilience to degrading. So this is a small brief introduction about my overall PhD research also. So as I said, this was a small component of my larger PhD research. So the research focused on socially equitable distribution of green spaces, and how remote sensing in GIS, particularly statistical GIS applications, can be used for enhancing economic efficiency. And as I demonstrated now, so what about the resilience of different morphological classes to ungreening? So this was highlighted in a few newspaper articles also. And at this moment, I would like to acknowledge the support offered by my PhD research supervisors, Dr. Raj Ramshakaran and Ronita Bartan at IIT Bombay and University of Cambridge, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Satya Kumar, for that your presentation about that how geospatial technology can be utilized to achieve that the sustainable goal, sustainable city actually, and as well as that the life on land, where that that you can understand that how much green cover is increasing and decreasing in the city space to go for the better planning. And I hope that the such kind of information is very much help to the city planner as well as the town planner to come up that the slide is not moving. Yeah, now it's moved. I think we lost Mohammad Qasim.
Yeah, sir, am I audible now?
Yeah,
Hello?
you are audible. Yes.
Okay. So in this presentation, I'll be covering these topics in brief. About first is about the Mapathon, the organizers, the team involved, the basic framework that we had evolved at IIT Bombay along with ISRO, the resources that we had shared with the participants, the statistics, and the maps. Next slide, please. Please scroll down. So this Mapathon is nothing but a map making activity, and the main objective of this was to promote the Indian remote sensing data. Because FOSSEE is one of the main organizers, FOSSEE is nothing but a project at IIT Bombay which is meant for promoting free and open source software for education. Both FOSSEE and the sister project Spoken Tutorial, they are funded by the National Mission on Education through ICT, Ministry of Education, Government of India. And the technical partner along with ISRO was Rudra. Rudra is the Rural Data Research Analysis Lab headed by Professor Pannan Chinnaswamy, along with the Wheels Foundation. And around 10,000 participants took part in this Pan-India Mapping Festival, where we ensured that almost representation from all Indian states and union territories were covered. And in fact, the objective was to create a pool of resources, people who actually are empowered in creating maps using QGIS, the open source tool. Next slide, please. Next. Now we can go to the next. So here is the project team, and the whole idea of this mapathon was conceived by Professor Pennan Chinnasamy and Professor Kannan Moudgalya, who is the PI of FOSSEE. He led the effort. So here is the team, the FOSSEE team at IIT Bombay, technical experts from the Rudra Lab, IIT Bombay, and the main ISRO team were the main part of it. Yeah. Next slide, please. So here is the framework of our mapathon. First, the concept was such that the participants, who were interested, were asked to register, and then most of them, because GIS and everything was new to them, so we had given them adequate resources, including some simple tutorials of how to learn QGIS and to effectively use the resources. Then they were asked to create maps. We had given them adequate timing, nearly a month or so, and they were asked to submit the maps, and the winners were awarded with certificates and prizes. So this is the simple framework that we followed for the IIT Bombay ISRO AICTE Mapathon. Next slide, please. So here are some of the problem statements that we had given, and in fact, thanks to the team from ISRO who had helped us coin and finalize this. So this includes, but not limited to, mapping of natural resources and man-made features, flood maps, locust infestation, land degradation maps, etc. And also the participants were given a freehand advantage of choosing their own problem statement or coming up with a problem statement specific to their particular region, the geography that they belonged. And that happened to be a good success. Next slide, please. So here are the resources. And in fact, because Mapathon was a kind of novel idea, and that too in a massive level that we were trying to promote. And at this time, we would like to thank Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, the chairman of AICTE, for heavily publicizing it along with the Prime Minister's office. So for this Mapathon, the following resources were shared: the QGIS tutorials, which were created by the spoken tutorial team at IIT Bombay, was shared. ISRO had provided very good resources from their Vedas portal, MOSDAC, and other portals. The boundary data, because Indian boundary lines are very much essential. So IIT Bombay had ensured that correct boundary data was provided, and also a resource page was put upon the official website of ISRO, IIT Bombay AICTE ISRO Mapathon. Next slide, please. So here are the links of the resources that we had shared with the participants. And in fact, we had created a separate folder containing all kind of GIS information, the basic documentation manuals and everything was given to the participants beforehand. Next slide, please. So we encourage the participants, as I said, spoken tutorial along with FOSSEE. Like, these are projects developed at IIT Bombay since 2009. So Professor Kannan Moudgalya is the creator of spoken tutorials.
Again, I think that we lost connectivity with Mr. Mohammad Qasim. We'll wait for that, some second.
The theme that evolved this project was geovisualization for implementing sustainable development goals. Keeping this in mind, the sustainable development goal that I chose to work on was SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. It states that cities should be resilient to natural disasters and protect those in vulnerable situations while also minimizing economic losses. Of the many targets and objectives of SDG 11, I fixated on target 11.3, inclusive and sustainable urbanization, which emphasizes on bringing more sustainable approaches into practice to develop a dynamic system, not only for today, but for coming years. Talking about sustainable practices, I bring to you rainwater harvesting systems. The most simple description of a rainwater harvesting system is collection and storage of rainwater for its viable usage, thus preventing some or most part of the runoff. A rainwater harvesting system has 5 basic components: the catchment area, conveyance system, storage, treatment, and finally, distribution. So as my topic highlights, the area of interest was Shimla, or you could say specify, Municipal Corporation of Shimla, which I've taken the liberty to address as urban Shimla here. The reasons why I selected this particular project was the weight of long tourist seasons, increasing population, rapid urbanization, unplanned built-up areas. These changes have brought up many challenges for the city administration, one of them being frequent water shortages. The aim of this project was to identify potential sites for rainwater harvesting in urban Shimla. To achieve this particular aim, I've attempted to satiate the following objectives: analyzing the population distribution in urban Shimla, identifying the factors that have an effect on rainwater harvesting sites, identifying suitable sites for rainwater harvesting systems in study area. I hope my slides are visible to you.
Yeah, they're visible, but are they changing, Shavya?
Is it visible now?
It's visible, but they're not changing.
Now can you see the...
Yeah, now it has changed.
Yes, it's changing now.
Okay, thank you. Coming to the data collection, on the basis of origin of sources, I have divided my data into 3 different categories. From the online sources, I availed a digital elevation model through Bhuvan portal. From the USGS portal, I availed the Landsat imagery for my data, for my area of interest, and finally the census data for population. From local authorities, I acquired the municipal corporation boundary data, the ward boundary data, water sources that have been installed by the municipal corporation, and the floating population for the city of Shimla. Through physical survey, I geotagged the natural water sources that are bodies that are around Shimla and the tourist spots. As you can see, the methodology for this particular project, post data collection, from the data availed through physical survey, I created a water sources map and a study area map. The municipal corporation data allowed me to create a base map for my studies. The population data was used to create population map and floating population map. The Landsat imagery was classified for extraction of built-up area and roads to create a built-up density road network map. From the digital elevation model, I calculated the slope map. The population map, floating population map, built-up density, and road network map are available to us in vector formats. These were needed to be converted into rasters for the purpose of reclassification. Using the reclassify tool, and after reclassification, site suitability was conducted to produce a final site suitability map. These are the first population maps that were created. A buffer of 500 meters of tourist spots were overlaid to make further analysis of whether or not these are correlated. As you can see, the population is however moderate wherever the tourist spots are there. Finally, I created a buffer over the built-up area. As you can see, there is a dense built-up area, hence there is more scope for using rooftop harvesting systems, rainwater harvesting systems. Coming to my second objective, rainwater harvesting systems capture, divert, and also store rainwater for future usage. Depending upon the catchment area, there can be different classifications for these systems. These can be either on ground or rooftop. The geospatial layers that are used to study both these systems vary terrestrially. In this particular city, we look at the urban region of Shimla, where the sloping roof structure is very common. Hence, it makes it an imperious tool for rainwater harvesting systems. So the factors that I identified through literature study and physical survey for this particular study that would affect rainwater harvesting sites include residential population, floating population, water sources in each ward, slope, built up, and road network. Here, this map visualizes the water sources and types of water resources that are available in the Municipal Corporation of Shimla, the public taps, reservoirs, tanks, and bodies that are the natural resources. Around five wards have been identified which do not have sufficient or low water sources: Dhali, Chamyana, Sanjoli, Malyana, and Patyok. These are the pictures from the physical survey of water sources, natural water resources in Shimla. As you can see, most of them and almost all of them are either dried up or classified unfit for drinking and usage by the MC. Finally, coming to the analysis part of my study, the weighted overlay method has been used to identify different sites that have good potential for rainwater harvesting system. Different factors based on literature survey were selected based on relevance and geo-visualized for a clear approach towards this analysis. The factors that were used in this weighted overlay method are residential population, floating population, slope, built up, and road network. As you can see in the map towards your right, the high density of dots indicates high floating population in certain wards, which is attributed to the commercial buildings and tourists that are present. It is a major factor in contributing to water stress in the city. This map here shows a dense network of roads overlaid by the built-up area in Shimla. The dense built-up area of the city in some wards coincides with the high residential and floating population. Thus, it confirms the need for alternative sources of water. The given slope map of Shimla was derived in ArcGIS Pro after the DM was downloaded from Bhuvan portal, clipped to the interest area, and the slope tool was used. This is the final map of the study, which was obtained in ArcGIS Pro after the weighted overlay method was applied. Here, the scale for site suitability is from 1 to 10. The values 1, 2, 3 indicate less suitable sites. 7, 8, 9, and 10 indicate most suitable locations for rainwater harvesting systems, and the areas that fall on values 4, 5, and 6 have moderate suitability. As you can see, the suitability of sites has been upgraded to ward level so that it is easier to locate that what wards are more suitable. The suitability is highly allocated to the residential population and also to the built-up area, which will be required as an infrastructure for rooftop collection. Finally, concluding this presentation, Shimla is a major tourist destination. It attracts national and international students and tourists and houses more than 50,000 floating population on an average day. The population of the city has expanded rapidly, thereby exerting pressure on the existing infrastructure of the city. The city requirements are estimated to be 42 million liters per day. However, it is currently supplied only by 30 million liters per day, thereby creating a very big gap or a water requirement deficit. Hence, rainwater harvesting provides a sustainable alternative. The way forward in this particular study could be a detailed mapping of rooftop cover in amalgamation with precipitation data to find the capacity of water generation of a particular rainwater harvesting system. The results of this study can also be used in comparison with amount of water supply to derive a constructive and quantitative result. Additionally, if we look into the snow cover that Shimla is blessed with, we can also add that to our studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya, for that your presentation. In fact, that this is a requirement nowadays. To understand that how much water we are able to harvest from that city space, and Himachal is facing a lot of problem for that water, actually, scarcity of water in specifically in the Shimla, Kullu, and the Manali area, which are that the heavy tourist places. The best the rainwater harvesting that the model, if you can see that the Hong Kong provide that the one of the best water harvesting model, where that they harvest maximum water during that the rainy season. So this is that the need of that time, actually using that geospatial technology for such kind of benefit, and for that achieve our sustainable goal, that the sustainable city. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you for that your excellent presentation. So now we are moving forward, and I'm inviting here that Dr. Aparna Pandey, who is a professor in NCERT, New Delhi, for the topic of School Bhuvan, an e-learning portal for a school student. Yes,
Thank you, Dr. Singh.
Pandey.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Good afternoon, everybody.
Dr.
Am I audible?
Dr.
Yes.
Singh, I think there is one more person remaining in the youth.
I think that in my list, I have not anyone.
Mohammed Qasim, who was not able to finish his presentation.
Yeah. Yes, right. He was not, so that once he would be active, then that
Right.
will.
He's here now. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, Dr. Aparna Pandey will finish that because he is over here. So I think Mohammed Qasim, you can start from that where you have left your presentation.
Thank you so much, sir, and my sincere apologies for the technical thing. Okay, so let me continue with my presentation. Is my slide moving, sir?
Not moving right now. It's not moving. Yes, now it's moving.
Okay, so I had given the overview about the activity that we have done, and these are the organizers. IIT Bombay, ISRO, and AICT being the main organizers, and the technical part was handled by the Rudra.
I think you can go ahead, go to that where you have finished that your presentation. So that would be we can save our time.
Yeah. So these are the problem statements collectively given by IIT Bombay and ISRO team, and the resources created were shared with the participants. The QGIS tutorials, the ISRO data, the boundary data, and everything. So these were the links that were shared with the participants. And spoken tutorial is a audio video learning based method which was used for training the participants on QGIS. And as far as the statistics is concerned, this event is one of the largest that was conducted in terms of mapping activity across India. All states and union territories had participated. Around 10,000 participants. The exact count is 9,343 participants had taken part in this grand activity. And as far as the demographic participation is concerned, all genders had participated, in different age groups, even family members had participated. There was no restriction put as such, and even participation was allowed in collaborative sequence, like participants from different colleges were allowed to team up. And there was no restriction on themes and disciplines, and even public and private organizations, including government agencies, had collaborated and they had taken part in this grand activity. And as there is a greater need for GIS experts, so the Mapathon event was mainly focused towards it, so that the trained experts are available in this particular domain. These are some of the sample maps, the winning maps that came out of the Mapathon event that we had conducted. And thanks to the Prime Minister's office along with the AICT for heavily publicizing this event. And IIT Bombay, ISRO, AICT Mapathon, it was started in the year 2020, but now we have made it as a continuous activity. Even this year also we have conducted a massive event. The registration was on. Many participants have submitted their maps for evaluation. The evaluation is still on. So I thank the panelists the chair and the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and also my special thanks to Mr. Sumit for giving me a chance. Thank you on behalf of Professor Kannan Madgalya, Professor Pennan Chinnaswamy, and the team from IIT Bombay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammad Qasim, for that your presentation. In fact, that innovative idea about that mapathon. In fact, that we have also started that mapathon in 2019, where that some small group of students, they have collaborated with that industry to come up with that some innovative ideas. And this is one of that very, very unique things where that the more learning will come. So thank you for your presentation. Now I'm inviting.
Yes, in 1993, NCERT had introduced remote sensing in our textbooks in geography at +2 level in classes 11th and 12th. And at that time, you might be knowing that in so many universities and colleges, remote sensing and GIS, remote sensing was not introduced. So at that time in NCERT, and these images were provided by ISRO at that time. And in 2000, when new school curriculum was developed, then GIS was introduced in the school curriculum along with remote sensing. So these textbooks were developed at that time. In 2005, when National Curriculum Framework for School Education was developed, then these contents have been given with more detail, remote sensing and GIS, and in these textbooks, again, it was included only in geography at +2 level in practical work. So more emphasis was given on practical aspect. Before that, only theoretical aspect was highlighted. Next slide. So keeping in view that it's a new area for teachers because they were not exposed to this technology as a part of their college education or university education. So we initiated capacity building programs for in-service teachers, PGTs in geography, postgraduate teachers in geography, in collaboration with IRS, Dehradun, NETMO, Kolkata, and NRC Hyderabad for different regions, for all regions of the country. And these programs were organized in these 3 centers for KVS, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, and CBSE affiliated private schools. You might be knowing that education is in the concurrent list of the Constitution of India. So states can adapt the curriculum developed by the NCERT. But Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, and CBSE affiliated private schools, they adopt the curriculum developed by NCERT in toto. So we give focus on these schools first. And then some other states which had adopted NCERT's curriculum, we started calling them, inviting them to the training program. And in this, under this program from 2009 to 2013, we invited teachers from state government schools of Sikkim, Kerala, Goa, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Assam, Bihar, Jharkhand, Jammu Kashmir, and Arunachal Pradesh at NCERT Delhi. So these programs were generally for 5 to 6 days duration in NCERT, and focus was on GIS. Next slide. And one thing I would like to add here, that these programs for, especially for master trainers, the idea was that these master trainers will organize similar kind of programs for other teachers of their respective organizations. But what we have found that this cascade effect of training program was not so successful because except Kerala, other states have not taken such initiative. What we had this information. So, and we found the teachers need regular support in this area. So keeping this in view, we developed in collaboration with IRS, NRSC, ISRO, this school-driven NCERT e-learning resource has been developed. And in this resource, because when curriculum is linked with this technology, then only students and teachers, they take interest. And you might be knowing that the school education is totally examination centric. So if something is related to the curriculum with the textbooks, then students and teachers, they teach these resources in the classroom also. So in all these, in this portal, the maps which are given in the textbooks of geography from classes 6 onwards, 6 to 12, these colorful maps have been uploaded on this portal. And this portal has this remote sensing imageries have made this this technology has made these maps very interactive. Now students, where an A4 size map, students could see only few rivers, few major rivers of our country, but on the portal they could see the small rivulets of their own village. So they all the students, they get thrilled to see these small features on their screen, what we have observed. And then in this portal, you can see that level 1, level 2, and level 3, 3 levels of activities have been developed, keeping in view class 6 students in mind. That in class, those who are studying in class 6 or 7, they can draw only point feature, and then in class line, in level 2 only line, and then in next level they can generate a complete map using point, line, polygon. And we have developed several, under help, we developed several projects, not only in geography, but these topics are related to social sciences, because geography has been included in social sciences from classes 6 to 10th. So some topics are related to history, some topics are related to environmental science, and these step-wise instructions are given in these projects, where the students can learn through these projects how to develop a complete map. Next slide. Next, please. Yeah, because our objective is that through this technology, the student should be able to comprehend geographical concepts. When we are talking about meanders, that rivers form meanders, how these river meanders look like, how these settlements are found here on the bank of rivers. So all these things are very clear on these imageries, and teachers make several questions based on these imageries. They can visualize. Not only this, when they did abstract concepts of latitude and longitude, they can see this is like wherever they put their cursor, they get thrilled to see that, okay, the way latitude and longitude all are changing while moving their cursor on the screen. So all these another thing is that under theme 1 and thematic series 2, several maps are uploaded here, and they can overlay, they can swipe, and they can see the relationship between 2 or 3 themes. So all these maps and all these themes are included in geography curriculum, geography textbooks. It helps teachers to explain the concept in the classroom. Then these, not only, as I told you, that not only the concepts are related to geography, some topics are related to history also. Like you can see the Dandi March. The route of Dandi March has been drawn, how to, that from where Gandhiji started, how many rivers Gandhiji crossed, where Gandhiji stayed during night. And so all these things students can draw, and they have been encouraged to draw similar kind of routes when such marches were organized during that time, during freedom struggle in different parts of our country. So not only this, the Gandhi March, several other routes they can draw on this this portal, and they can learn the geospatial technologies as well as the concepts related to different subject areas. Then map your own neighborhood mapping, they can develop the map of their own city, or if it is related to environmental concepts or air quality index or any city, this is available. And such way they also learn how to collect resources, how to collect data from different sources. And then this is a waterlogged area. So every monsoon is a concept, but during monsoon, what problems occur in different cities, in different areas, they can draw waterlogged areas in their own city. So every year they can just compare that which area was waterlogged in this time, what was waterlogged in this and that time. And then this space is also given. They can use for attributes also, they can use their data, they can write about 50 words they can add here about the data. So next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, and then again capacity building programs were organized. Then this portal was developed to make teachers familiarize about the functions of this, the tools available on this portal. Then again KVS, NVS and CBSE affiliated private schools were called, and it was a joint initiative of NCERT and ISRO Bangalore. Then at 20 centers simultaneously this program was organized in 2 phases. So in 2015 and 16, this was a great success. It's for a very successful program when because all remote sensing center, application centers and universities come together, and they had organized this program simultaneously. Course was designed by NCERT and IIRS Dehradun. And then for other organizations, whenever they invite us or whether they want that such programs should be organized, or at NCERT also we organized training programs for in-service teachers or pre-service teachers or army welfare Education Society or diets. So for all levels of school education, these stakeholders are involved in all levels of school education. So that's why we are trying to disseminate this technology among all levels. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this live interaction program on PM eVidya, this program is being organized by NCERT every day. So 24/7, these programs are going on different subject areas. So we just organize on whether it is tourism, related to tourism, or Paratan Parv, or any of the issues. Time to time, we just take sessions, and this is a very interactive sessions are being organized for all stakeholders, not only for the students, teacher, parents. Anybody can participate in such programs. Next slide. So that's again when in 2018 we organized an outreach program, so the through distance mode, and this was organized again with the help of NRSC Hyderabad and IRS Dehradun. And in this program, all teachers from all parts of our country, and especially from KVS, NVS, and the state government of Sikkim come forward, and they had all teachers of their especially social science and geography teachers participated in these programs. So next please. Just to make available the resources, an interactive e-content has been developed by IRS Dehradun based on NCERT curriculum, NCERT textbooks, which have been developed by NCERT for classes 11th and 12th. So if they have to learn, teachers or students have to learn about remote sensing, these are very interactive videos, animations, and self-learning materials. And link of this material is also available on Schoolbo and NCERT portal homepage. So they can click on this link and they can learn about this basic concepts of remote sensing and geographical information system. And this program was reviewed by NCERT and school teachers, and modifications which were suggested in the workshop have been incorporated. Then national online competition in geospatial technologies based on Schoolbo and NCERT was also organized by NCERT in 2019, and especially this was for classes 9 to 12, and students participated very enthusiastically in this program. But due to this examination time, class 12 students took part because they could not, very few students took part in this program, but 9th and 10th and 11th students took this very much enthusiastic, and you can see that they have just developed several small projects. My Way to School, or mapping the Narmada Kshipra link on NCERT Bhuvan. Several projects they submitted, and it was a pilot. We just wanted to see that how much students are learning through this portal, and all students, not only geography students, all students, even computer teachers took these projects very interestingly, and they enthusiastically supported students to submit their projects. Thank you. Next. And NCERT organizes All India Children Education Audio Video Festivals every year, and during these festivals also we showcase the activities and programs which we are doing in NCERT. So next. And initiatives, when we get feedback from teachers also when they get trained by here in NCERT or by other organizations, they just take some initiatives in their respective schools. You can see that remote sensing day is being celebrated in a school in Kendriya Vidyalaya or at Himachal Pradesh. So these teachers are for PGTs. They are teaching at class 11th and 12th. But when they go back to their schools, they invite all the students of their from primary to higher secondary stages, and they just showcase that they display the images, and they organize quiz programs for all students. So that's where we can disseminate. So first we have to motivate teachers, we have to make them capable to understand the concept and disseminate this technology among students, among all students. Next. We get feedback from, because geospatial technology is being taught as a subject in some CBSE affiliated private schools. So we just get feedback from teachers also that with the help of this Schoolbo and NCERT portal, this is very helpful for them to develop projects. They send several projects that our teachers, students are developing several projects, because this is a special subject, geospatial technology. This is not geography, but in this subject also they are using this portal very much. So how this portal is helping students and teachers, and even computer teachers are taking help from this portal to make students understand the concept. Next. So at the end, I would like to say that what Dr. Annie Besant has said, we want an education that shall be absolutely devoid of anything that creates fear, because half the faults, as they call them, of the children are the result of fear. Why? Because in what we see, and since morning I am just observing that yes, it's very good that very scientific researches are going on, and but at least for school education, when we avoid jargon, when we avoid technical terms, we have to try to make students understand this concept, this technology in a very simple manner. Then only this fear of technology will go from the minds of our children. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you, Professor Pandey. That the very excellent presentation. In fact, that the how technology, in fact, that the GIS and remote sensing has been ingested to that kids. And that which was that the nebulous technology earlier, and make it very clear to the kids, and the journey from that the GIS remote sensing to the geospatial technology, which you are now incorporating in your textbook. And this is going to be a really that very much innovative ideas, and which is going to be feeder to that the graduate as well as that the master program of new education policies. Thank you, Professor Pandey, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
So now we are moving forward, and I'll invite Professor Shamita Kumar for her topic, that the sustainability in his school, a pan-India initiative to introduce a geospatial tool to the SDG goal. Professor Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you, Professor Aparna. I mean, we are in the youth section, though I think we are young by heart, but these are programs, for the youth, and therefore we are in this youth section. What I'm going to be presenting now actually, complements what Professor Aparna Pandey has been, talking about. So while she has a program that's already been running in some parts of the country, this is a program that we are in the process of initializing, right now. So I thought, I'd just give an introduction about this, because we have a lot of teachers here in this session as well, who we have, invited. I normally, hate to start with a slide like this, which is extremely negative and, tells us, okay, what are the problems around us? But they're real. They're real. And the good thing is that, we can all do something about it. So we do see pluvial flooding, as we saw with the Mayur's presentation. We do face the effects of climate change. I mean, all of us know about it. But very often, these global problems are a result of local problems. So you have deforestation and you have unmanaged environment at the local level that eventually leads to a global problem like climate change. But the good thing is that these local problems, they do have local solutions. We had Dr. Shirish Ravan yesterday, our chair for the government session, and he said that even if I am, drinking half a glass of water and I'm, you're reusing the other half, I'm still contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. So every small action, however small it may be, can contribute to a local solution. And this local solution ultimately contributes to a global solution that can deal with global problems. So although this might be quite simplistic, it's a very schematic way of showing that each one of us has a role to play when we are looking at global problems. And this is where exactly the SDGs come in. So we have the United Nations World Geospatial Congress, at the core of which is geospatial technologies for the SDGs. So the SDGs are a wonderful tool that we have to deal with all of the global challenges. So I would say that, this is something to be positive about. Yes, we have a problem, we know it exists, but we also today have tools and technologies to be, or policies to be able, to deal with this problem as well. So there are 17 goals, and these goals are measured and monitored. So there are 169 targets, and there are 232 indicators based on which the success of these goals are going to be measured. Now, this needs data, and it needs a very large amount of data. And the good thing is again here that these indicators and targets, they have been localized up to the national level, and there's further localization also in process, which means that every school, every organization, can contribute in their own way to the Sustainable Development Goals and to contributing data also to the Sustainable Development Goals measurement. So for our young people over here, especially from schools who are not aware of this, the MDGs, that is the Millennium Development Goals, they preceded the SDGs. Now, without going into too much detail of the difference, I would like to draw your attention to the last point over here, which says that, the SDGs will be measured using all of this different kinds of data. So while the MDGs, they basically relied on official statistics and administrative data, the SDGs have a more of a bottoms up and a top down approach as well, where they're looking at a lot of data generated by citizens, contributed by citizens, to measure and see how far we have reached in terms of achieving these particular goals. So where does education, come into the picture for the goals now? Education is a key enabler for the goals. It's extremely essential that young people know about the goals. It is important that it is integrated into every course curriculum across the country, because building awareness about the goals is the first step in, achieving the SDGs. So if you look at the timeline across India, so the UN declared this 2005 to 2014 as the UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. However, in India, during the same period, we didn't even think of ESD, because it was at this point in time that environmental education became mandatory in India. So at the institute here, we were very happy to be a part of a nationwide study, a research into school textbooks and what is contained within school textbooks, based on which this policy was formulated, and NCERT also took it forward to see how environmental education could be incorporated into the curricula. Going further, the UGC also designed a compulsory core module on environment. We've written the official textbook for the UGC, so that information about the environment, it becomes part of core curriculum. And NCERT also brought out this very wonderful book, for class 3, which also focuses on generating interest around everything around us. And this is one of the first books that I saw was really differently written, motivating a child to, I think, actually, go around and learn. So we had this long period of implementation. So while the world moved ahead with the Global Action Program, environmental education, continued to move ahead in its stream, until now, when we have come up with India's education policy. Globally, this particular decade is known as, the decade of SD, decade of ESD, and we have this concept of education for sustainable development for 2030. So is there now a dichotomy between these two things? I don't think so, because a national education policy is a very forward-looking document that actually offers us huge opportunities to achieve education for sustainable development. And this particular project is a little endeavor in that direction. So how can education for sustainable development accelerate the implementation of the SDGs? The first is raising awareness about the goals. So as you saw here, each of the presentations that we had since yesterday, be it government or industry or academia or youth, we've asked them to focus on how their research actually contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals. It could be in terms of measurement or monitoring or implementation, or even action on the ground. So raising the awareness about the goals is important for us to be able to achieve the goals. The second is, especially the goals, offer immense opportunities for promoting critical thinking. It offers immense opportunities for understanding these goals in the context of our own lives, not only globally, not only nationally, but locally within our own surrounds. And I think this is very important if you have to look at internalization of these goals. And the third most important thing is, with the awareness and with the understanding, It is then moving on to the third step of actually mobilizing action towards achievement of the SDGs. And it is within this frame that, we have actually planned this particular program. So to look at very briefly, what does education for sustainable development mean, right? It says it's development of knowledge, skills, values, actions to create a sustainable world. It's simple, that's part of goal 4.7. And what does the NEP mandate? So it says equal access to education, focusing on holistic and inclusive learning based on inquiry, discovery, discussion, analysis, using a multidisciplinary approach and competency based. So there is no dichotomy between these two. So we actually today have a beautiful policy document in form of the NEP that facilitates and provides for spaces for us to implement education for sustainable development. So what does this actually then entail? Reworking our curriculum, and that's actually being done. So whether it's a separate subject that we have as environmental education or embedding these concepts within the school curricula, the approach really doesn't matter, as long as we are going to get to the core of what the students should really understand through a whole institution approach. So that's the key thing here. The second thing is NEP focuses on transformative learning. And without capacity building features, I think transformative practices is not really possible, but then it again offers us the space to be able to do that. It also focuses on interdisciplinary learning or even transdisciplinary learning, that is looking at what exists, what knowledge exists in society. So if you look at all of these three things, the project that we now sort of look for initiating, it covers all of these things. NEP or ESD competencies, are several of these, and these competencies are important. UN or UNEP says that these competencies are important if we are going to achieve the sustainable development goals. So the competencies of systems thinking, competencies of problem solving, competencies of collaboration, working with each other, all of these are important. And all of this is also what the NEP says. So coming now to the 4.7, target 4.7, which is what the program really focuses on. It says that, all learners need to have knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development through sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity. So in that sense, it differs a little from environmental education because it goes beyond and tackles the social as well as the economic dimensions of development as well. So why do we want to bring in geospatial here into the schools? NCERT has a program now of quality and sustainable schools. And we feel that putting in geospatial technologies, which is basically a tool, it provides a lot of opportunities to build the competencies that I just spoke about. Problem solving. We saw the example of Mapathon. We saw the example that Professor Pandey was talking about, collaboration, looking at problem solving. And through these, it introduces students to a very valuable tool through which they can actually measure and assess the environment around them. Also come up with ways in which they can localize the SDG implementation as well. So basically, it also does a very important, task, which is fostering spatial thinking skills, because most problems around us are spatial, and looking at these problems through a lens such as the geospatial technologies, can be extremely valuable in developing knowledge, but also skills. So this is why, we are looking at saying, okay, we would like to use geospatial technologies to initiate a sustainable schools program that focuses on localizing the action for SDGs across the country. So what do we have as resources, for this? How does one go about this if you're a teacher? So I would like to go back to a program that we run for the DST, which is a capacity building program that's basically targeted at a professional level. So it's for teachers from colleges and research scientists, who would like to learn these geospatial technologies. And as part of this program, we've developed a portal that has got access to a lot of material in the form of tutorials as well as data. So these are some of the institutions that were involved in the program over the last 6 to 7 years. And as you can see in the map in this particular cycle, several institutions across the country, are involved with this. This was the second cycle, and here you can see several more institutions are also involved in this particular program. And this is the cycle that we are running at the moment, where even Symbiosis Institute of Geoinformatics is also involved as one of the centers that's delivering this capacity building program across the country. Now, this means that, we have all of these tutorials here, which is dealing with GIS or remote sensing using open source software. So that's the idea, is any school can also look at these kind of tutorials and start with working with them completely with absolutely no investment in software as well. And the tutorials are pretty much in detail. As you can see here, you can download the PDF and the data and work towards it. So what is it that we propose and we are implementing at the moment? So on one hand, we have the geospatial capacity building programs that has trained more than 5,000 participants across India. So we do have a trained manforce who are enthusiastic and willing. And on the other side, we have this geospatial program for schools, where we started off with workshops on SDGs and sustainability in October last year. So more than 500 schools across the country, teachers across the country were involved in these workshops, orienting them to sustainability in schools and localizing the SDGs. So right now we are in the process of formulating a manual with case use exercises, which can be used by the schools for seeing, okay, this is a problem, how can I use geospatial technologies? Which SDG is it related to? What is the problem in my area? What can be the solution? So looking at it from a different lens, and in the process, fostering collaborative systems thinking and problem solving skills. So and towards this end, coming towards end May or June, we propose to have workshops. And we also propose to link the willing participants, the willing trainees from our past programs as mentors to the schools and teachers, because we feel that teachers and students may need a little hand-holding initially, especially if they are not really oriented to teacher training. So we've started approaching the participants from our training program and asking them if they were willing to mentor a school which is in and around their area, so that we form a link between the mentor and the school who is willing to be mentored. And these workshops will be initiated in the month of May and June. And through these, after the training programs, we would like to have the schools start off with the implementation of their projects, localizing the SDGs through the use of geospatial technologies. And of course, the best ones will be showcased in the UNWGIC, but all of the projects will be showcased on a web portal that we have. And we hope this becomes a very continuous exercise where, in sync with the NCRT's program of having the proven GIS, we can really take this program forward in terms of developing a very young population that has got spatial thinking skills and probably can contribute to the next generation of geospatial technologies in India. So we are in the process of outreach to schools. If you know of schools, I would request you to spread the word around and get in touch with us as well. I think we are in a very wonderful period of time where, in spite of all the environmental problems that we have an opportunity in terms of the sustainable development goals. And with a lot of programs that have been already mentioned here, I think we can make education fun and extremely rewarding for children when they start to explore everything around them with a completely new lens. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shamta Kumar. Thank you for that, the wonderful idea that how collaboration can go ahead actually to leverage the technology not only to that master and that undergraduate level, but it should go up to that the school level, where that kids or student can understand about the geospatial technology and geospatial tool to solve the local problem, which is very important, because that students, they are not understanding that what is the solution for that the certain problem which is existing their neighborhood. And if they have that the some of important tool to solving that the problem, that would be really generate that interest to utilization of geospatial technology and geospatial tool, and which is going to be make that the workforce, geospatial technology workforce in India. So thank you for your excellent presentation. And I think that Professor Pandey work, and that that what you are looking for, this is that the things where that the collaboration needs to go ahead. Thank you for that, your innovative ideas. So now that think we are open for that another question answer session. So now I request that all the participants, if you have any question answer, you okay. So thank you, Professor Kumar. I think I have that much questions. And thank you for that. All the panelists, those who have basically that given that the insight of that how geospatial technology can be utilized to solve that the different problems, not only that the natural resource or that what existing problem, but also that that how geospatial technology can be ingested to the kids. What are the plan to sensitize that the children in schools about the technology tools, and that the science which is coming up to solve that the problems. So on this word, that I thank you that all that the presenters who has presented their work, specifically that the youth, those are going to be that the holding this baton in the next 50 years geospatial technology. So thank you for that. Thank you for this session. And I think I hand over this session to the Dr. Samta Kumar.
Thank you very much, Professor T.P. Singh. I think we had a very interesting session today with a lot of new ideas that were brought forth by the young people who we see here. And as the coordinator of this pre-event, I'd just like to share a couple of slides, giving up and summing up what happened in these events, before we go on to the way forward. So this was the second pre-event that was held. The first was held by the Delhi Technological University in, I think, February, and there are about 4 more also being held in different parts of the country. And like Dr. Datta and Sri Acharya and Dr. Shubhaji, they mentioned that all of these pre-events, the goal is to build the content towards the UNWGIC. So the idea is to showcase different actors, stakeholders, examples, case stories that India has, to the world. So more than 150 plus countries will be represented here. And also, as Dr. Shubhaji mentioned in the morning, we would also like to showcase India's technology that can be upscaled and maybe used by other countries, for example, from Africa or South America, or any other countries that can benefit by having, from having similar problems like an emerging country like India does. So with this, I'd just like to share only a couple of slides. So we had 5 sessions, over the last 1.5 days, and interesting sessions from government with 7 case stories that also had presentations from some national organizations like the Survey of India, the NIC, that showcase the kind of technology that they have now to get this data out, to collect the data, the technology itself, and also its uptake by common citizens. And similarly, we also had presentations from the Pune Municipal Corporation, as well as from the NIUA, which are more locally focused, that look at the uptake of this technology into an application. And the industry session, of course, was really mind-blowing with the 6 case stories of young entrepreneurs. The Delhi pre-event, it focused on the bigger industries, while the Pune event, it focused on startups and also entrepreneurs, I would say. And they brought out such wonderful examples of the development of this technology that actually localizes the SDGs. You know, one of the highlights was also by Professor Lohani from IIT Kanpur through his entrepreneurial venture, where his app actually puts this knowledge and data into the hands of a common man as to, you know, what is the installation out there right now and which of my appliances, you know, can work. I mean, putting this kind of data in the hands of the common man, you know, can completely change the story of our world, because it allows for better decision making. There were several others, especially with use of AI, which completely revolutionized GIS, as we know, and, you know, makes academics like us deeply think about the kind of curriculum that we now need to have if you know, we are to keep pace with the developments in the geospatial world. We of course had academia, wonderful stories from academia as well, and today really very nice case stories from civil society, cutting across sectors from health and sanitation to forest rights to mapping and urban biodiversity stories. So all of these, I think, which have huge potential for upscaling and showcasing to the world what India has. And of course, youth. So I've purposely put this as 6+2 because we had 6 case stories and then Professor Pandey and myself, which highlight the potential that youth have. And it is here, you know, that I would really like to have a message. So in all of the projects that you presented or in all of the research that you will do in the future, please think of how your research can contribute to the sustainable development goals. Research today, you know, is not meant to be kept on the shelves of university libraries or just finished with a publication. One needs to think of beyond that what. Can you share your research with an implementing agency at the local level, national level, because it is the era of collaborations. Is your research relevant? Is it looking at real life, you know, situations? Do you have a problem to that? Because you would find then that the research is made much more interesting, much more challenging, and you know, has a value. So do look at this kind of research as you go forward and try to link to the SDGs and also highlight innovations. We are no longer looking at, you know, what is, but what can be. And one other thing is, you know, which I always say is try to work beyond your field. You know, when we are working within, let's say, geography or ecology, you know, we are not generating new knowledge. But if I, as an ecologist, can combine or can work with an engineer, and I can generate new knowledge. So interdisciplinarity is the way to go, and that's how new knowledge is generated. And you will find that also much more, you know, challenging. So just to give you a snapshot of what we had 409 participants that were registered until this afternoon, of which 214 attended. I would say that this is bad, because most of us do register and then we find that something or the other turns up and we are not able to attend it. But for those of you who have not been able to attend it, the recording of the entire 1.5 days is available on YouTube, on our institute YouTube channel, and you could catch up with that as well. So who attended this? We had about percentages. We had 88 people who were constantly throughout the 1.5 days, which I think is very good. And I really think that this little figure here shows that we still need to work with civil society, because very often civil society and NGOs think, oh, you know, how am I going to use the GIS technology in my work? And this is really a sector that we need to work. And this is why DST today focuses on, you know, popularizing this geospatial technology among the civil society as well. We had a good number, I would say, not really very good, but yeah, this is what it is between males and the females. And what's interesting here is that we also had two students, you know, who were attending the conference, which I think is very, very good. But as you can see here, the bulk is 31 to 40, 21 to 25. So if you look at these 3 quarters, it's actually youth. And I think this is where the Geospatial Congress really focuses on. It is a Congress for the youth. So do make it a point of sharing this information with all your peers in whatever social media platform you are in, so that we really build this up, to a movement prior to the United Nations World Geospatial Information Congress. Like I said, there are 4 more such events held in different geographies of the country, so that institutions from those parts of the country can participate and send in their case stories. Make sure that you are spreading this world around. So coming to the end, I would really like to thank the Department of Science and Technology for giving us an opportunity for hosting this particular pre-event, and to all our panelists and our speakers, who took time out to chair the sessions, co-chair the sessions, and also to present the work that we have done helping in the content building process for the DST, and all our participants who enthusiastically participated in this event, and for all of you who stayed throughout, or the specific sessions as per your interest as well. And also my team here at Bharati Vidyapeeth for making this a very smooth affair. So this is just the beginning. I mean, it's just the beginning. It's a very wonderful journey, I would say, that we have working towards the sustainable development goals. Gives us new challenge and purpose. Thank you very much. Keep doing good work, and hopefully we will meet each other at some point in time, either here or there or at the UNWGIC or wherever. So thank you very much.